and I'm so delighted to introduce Rick Steves.
Well, it is a delight to be here, and it's for me always it's a thrill to be able to be sort of your globe-trotting guinea pig, to go over there and make all the mistakes, take careful notes, lose my traveler's checks just to see what will happen, you know. And I just, when I'm over there, I spend 4 months here in Europe. I've done that ever since I graduated from high school. And I really go over there intending to have all the experiences and make the mistakes and take careful notes. If I get ripped off, I celebrate, because they don't know who they just ripped off, and I'm going to learn that scam, and I'm going to bring it home. So today I've assembled just an hour and a half worth of material here, and forgive me, I'm going to be going really fast. We have a big crowd, and I know the show is finishing at 5 o'clock, and I need to be at Distant Lands at 4:30 for a book signing. So I'll be really like marching right out of here when I'm done, and I don't know if we'll have, with such a big group, much time for a Q&A, you know. But I do want to share as much as I can to help you enjoy maximum travel thrills for every mile, minute, and dollar on your next trip. So I hope that's what you're here for, and I hope you have a trip coming up. It's always very clear to me, we Americans have the shortest vacations in the rich world, so we don't need somebody just to say you can spend a lifetime in Florence. I know you can spend a lifetime in Florence, but I got 1.5 days now. How am I going to use them smartly? See, that's the reality. We're always complaining about our dollar, you know, which is, I've been doing this for 30 years, and it's always just, you know, how we're going to stretch our dollar. Well, obviously you want to use your dollars and your time very smartly. Now, I should say, this book here, Europe Through the Back Door, is the textbook for this talk. I wrote this book for the first time back in 1980. I've updated it every year since 1980 with 4 months of travel experience. It's my passion to pack the lessons I've learned into this book so smart travelers can learn from my mistakes rather than their own and travel smoother. Something fundamental to good travel is meeting people. If I'm making a TV show or a guidebook or putting a tour together and I'm not connecting people to people, I'm not happy with the process. A lot of people in the industry are just connecting people with cliches on stage. I'm really not looking for that. I'm not looking for connecting people with guys in uniforms that'll carry your bag for you either. I want to get real people connected with real people. And the good news is, the less you spend, the closer you get to the ground and the more vivid of an experience you can have. This experience, I was just in Sicily somewhere, tooling around in a rental car. I saw a little cheese festival, stopped the car, went out and met a bunch of people who are evangelical about cheese. It's that simple. It was free, but if I didn't stop the car and get out, I don't even care what the town was. There's this kind of magic everywhere if you know how to find it. Now, one of the challenges for us is to remember that we're consumers. Travel is a big industry. It's a huge employer. It's a great source of foreign revenue. Everybody wants your money. I don't know anybody who paid for a booth in this show that is in here just because, you know, they just love to inspire people to travel. Everybody's out there trying to make money. I'm selling books. They're selling tours. They're selling balloon rides or adventure excursions or whatever. It's all fair, but as consumers, you got to understand that it is your responsibility to consume what you want to consume, not what they want you to consume. And that's the challenge, because everything comes at us with the media. Media is expensive, and you need to find your place where you're part of the party instead of part of the economy. And you can do that if you go to places that do not have promotional budgets. What I call back doors. They're just having another century, you know, going through time, minding their own business all over Europe if you know where to find them. And that's your challenge. This is a beautiful hill town 2 hours north of Rome. If all I had to talk about were famous places, you know, the Acropolis and the windmills, I'd have no business giving these talks. We know to check that out, and I love checking out the windmills and the Acropolis. But what gives your trip a very important extra dimension is to meet those places that somehow missed the modern boat. And again, they're all over the place. This is what I do in my work, is try to find these offbeat places. This is the Italian Riviera, the Cinque Terre. What a beautiful place to balance your experience in Venice, Florence, and Rome. All over Southern Europe, you've got hill towns with castles up above and beautiful whitewashed lanes below that are waiting for you to explore them. You've got gorgeous little towns bullied on ledges between mountains and lakes high in the Austrian Alps. Now, I'm not the first traveler to say get off the beaten path, but I want to stress it. 2 hours north of here, there's a countless number of tourists in Salzburg complaining about the tourist crowds. I love Salzburg. It's one of my favorite places. I'm going there this spring. But I don't go there and complain about the crowds. It is crowded. It's touristy. This is Sound of Music country. Julie Andrews, Mozart balls, all that kind of stuff. Go there, have fun, and then get away from it. Many people go there, complain about the crowds, and the next morning they take the Sound of Music bus tour. Well, they're going to be rolling through the foothills of the Alps with 30 Japanese tourists singing Do a Deer. That's interesting, but it's not Austrian. It's touristy, okay? Get away from it. Go 2 hours south, find yourself in a little village and commune with nature with local people. All these little towns I just showed you can fall through the cracks. By the way, I don't have time in today's talk to talk about specific places. That would be in all my guidebooks. So if you're looking for this magic in Portugal, you get my Portugal book. If you're looking for what that town was in Italy, I keep no secrets, I can promise you that. I work really hard to find these places, and I do my best to ruin them by sending everybody there. Okay? So they're in the books with all the B&Bs and whatever. But all those little towns can fall through the cracks. Big towns, beautifully preserved with lots of great art, they will be touristy. We don't veto a town just because it's touristy, but we think of it ways to enjoy it while minimizing the crowds. Toledo, incredible place, the historical, artistic, and spiritual capital of Spain. Just an hour and a half south of Madrid. Packed out with tour groups during the middle of the day. At night, they retreat 1 hour north to the predictable plumbing of their high-rise hotels in Madrid. The local people have made their money, they push their postcard racks away, they come out very Spanish, ready to do their paseo thing. El Greco would recognize his hometown, Toledo, after dark. I love these towns after dark. Touristy as it may be in the middle of the day, you go to a place like Rothenburg after dark, it's magical. It's just you and the floodlit ramparts. One of the most beautiful sites in Europe, anywhere in Europe for me, being a tour organizer, is in Rothenburg. When I come in the middle of the day, it is literally hard for me to park my tour bus, and the tour bus parking lot outside of the wall. I don't know if you've been there with a tour group, but there's a lot for tour buses. It's got 100 buses in it. At night, if I forget something and I have to go back outside to my bus, there it is for me, the most beautiful sight in all of Europe. My bus, floodlit, all alone in the parking lot. Reminding me that there's just one group in town tonight and a bunch of individual travelers. You can't imagine how that changes the character of the Rothenburg that you will experience. A lot of people complain about the crowds in Venice, but those people are not out early and out late. They're coming in with a cruise ship or coming in with a tour bus, and those companies keep you on the mainland because it's cheaper there, and you are stuck after dinner. What are you going to do? Sit there? There's no way out of the hotel, or are you going to pay $50, get on the bus, and go downtown for the floodlit tour? You know, they're all going to be together. But if you can pay the extra money, stay right downtown in Venice, be out late, be up early, you can have the magic of Venice, which is a little town of 60,000 people, which 1,000 years ago was the most important economic powerhouse in Europe. It's a beautiful experience. I'm going to do 2 TV shows on Venice this coming April. I can hardly wait to get back to Venice. Now, I'm a sucker for old dead stuff, but I'll tell you, you owe it to yourself in every country in Europe to spend a day in a great modern big city that doesn't have a lot of tourism. You know, every country's got them, places you wouldn't think you'd spend a lot of time in. This is Berlin. It's worth visiting regardless. It's just wonderful. But you want to see a modern, people-oriented powerhouse of an urban center in each country. And things are changing rapidly with a focus on people. For instance, this is Berlin, and 1 generation ago there was a wall here that separated the city. And they would kill you if you tried to get over that wall. That wall, there's no hint of it anymore, and look what's grown up in its midst. It is amazing how Europe is changing and looking forward. Many, many people go to Paris, but very few people see the Parisians' reality, which is La Défense. This is really more Paris than the Arc de Triomphe, which is there on the horizon. Do you see that little arc there? That's the Arc de Triomphe. If you keep walking for an hour downhill in the other direction, you get to the Louvre and the Tuileries Gardens and the Ile de la Cité and all that great Parisian stuff in the center. But that's all protected. And that's where the locals like to go for a nice dinner and to go out or whatever. But they work outside of town. Spend an afternoon out here in the modern world. Just 1 afternoon in each country. When you go to London, go to the Docklands, and you'll see where today's London really is. And you'll notice these business parks are connected with the romantic downtown with super fast subway systems. Because there's high-powered professionals out here, and they want to get downtown, don't they, to Piccadilly Circus or whatever's happening downtown, and they will have a good, convenient way for them to get in and out. These are, in Paris, it's called the RER. It's a very fast version of the metro that leaps 4 stops at a time to get people in and out in a hurry. Okay, you're going to see the no-nonsense reality, and then we can get into our fantasy medieval images, okay? And I'm a sucker for this, and this is my focus when I go to Europe. And I love to go to castles, for instance. But when we look at these castles, we owe it to ourselves to really know what is the story. When was this thing made and why? It's made 800 years ago, when there were 300 independent countries in what is today Germany, the size of Montana. Imagine that, 300 independent countries in Montana, each with its own weights and measures and curfews and customs and castle. When we understand feudalism, we better understand the castles we're going to see. This happens to be my favorite castle in Germany, not on the Rhine River, on the Mosel River, M-O-S-E-L, which is probably your image of the Rhine, but not as promoted as the Rhine. It's the little baby version of the Rhine that comes into the Rhine at Koblenz, which is a town where the two rivers come together, which happens to be the Latin word for confluence, reminding us that 2,000 years ago the Roman Empire spread as far north as the Rhine River. This castle here, also in Germany, is a completely different story, a slice of the European story. This castle was built in the same generation as the Eiffel Tower. It's Romanticism. Now, for years I went to this castle and I thought it was medieval. It's pointy. And then I took an art history class and all of a sudden I understood Romanticism, and a third of my sightseeing took on some meaning. I mean, Romanticism is the ism of the 1800s. When Germany was coming together, when Italy was coming together, when they were doing fanciful old stuff to sort of imply that these countries had legitimacy and roots. And when you go to the castle like this, the Romantic king, whose favorite buddies were Romantic opera composers and poets and so on, they're all wallpapered, all of the themes of the operas are wallpapered on the walls of that castle. It's all very over-the-top romantic. If you look at the over-the-top, super pointy stuff in Europe that looks just uber-Gothic, it's probably neo-Gothic from the 1860s, all right? And we just really need to understand that when we're sightseeing. One of my favorite kinds of castles is a ruined castle. Here with a little imagination, you're under attack 1,000 years ago in Portugal. And the great thing about this castle is nobody's there. It's just rotting away unnoticed, like castles, ruined castles all over Europe, from Portugal to Finland to Israel. You'll find plenty of ancient or medieval ruined stuff. But the trick for us is to figure out where these places are, because these are free, and when something's free, nobody promotes it. It's expensive to promote things. You only promote something that is going to be profitable, with a turnstile, and things to sell, and tours, and a restaurant, and all that thing. Here, it's just some ramparts. You can run along after you've had your picnic as the sun is setting. And you've got to take your own initiative to find these places, and that can be done quite realistically. But the impetus is on you, because it's not going to come to you because it's free. Do you follow me there? As consumers, you need to not just take what comes at you, but you need to move for places that you really want. As a TV producer and a guidebook writer and a tour organizer, you can imagine all the stuff from the tour industry coming at me all the time. And I have developed a very good shield that considers it but doesn't favor it just because it has glossy advertising. This is Sintra, outside of Lisbon in Portugal, and it's just a wonderful spot. Here with a little imagination, you're under attack 1,000 years ago with the Moors and the Christians and so on fighting in Portugal. Now, we need to understand what we're looking at. This is a Roman aqueduct, the most famous one in southern France, the Pont du Gard near Avignon. Actually, it's not a Roman aqueduct. I always thought it was a Roman aqueduct. Then I got to know more about it, and it's just the most scenic bridge in a 30-mile-long aqueduct, designed by Romans 1,800 years ago, so the water would trickle in a little river on the top, losing 1 inch every 100 yards. So it would flow with gravity all the way to the great Roman city of Nîmes. You see, now all of a sudden this thing has a little more meaning, and then you follow up your visit here with a trip to Nîmes to see where the water tumbled into the city. And you think of the jubilation on that great day 1,800 years ago when, thanks to the Roman engineers, water came into the city so people didn't have to carry it into the city. And then you can even look at the distribution cap of the water and sort of analyze what kind of social thoughtfulness was going on into that engineering. For instance, when there was low water, the lowest pipes from that distribution cap went to feed the neighborhood wells so the people could have water to drink. And when there was more water, it would go to rich people's homes for their decorative fountains. And then when there was the most water, it would go to the decorative fountains for the town in general. It's very interesting to have some way to put these stones to life. And that's our challenge as travelers and as tour guides. I spend 4 months a year in Europe. I've done that for the last 30 years. I'm over there in a beautiful little rut. I spend April and May in the Mediterranean. I go home for June, and I'm July and August north of the Alps. About 2/3 of my time is spent researching guidebooks, and 1/3 of my time, for 25 years I was a tour guide. I no longer lead our tours. I've got 80 guides that lead all of our tours and that I help work with. But my time is best spent researching the guidebooks and guiding my TV crew around. So I spend 1/3 of my time over there making the TV shows that a lot of you watch on your local public television station. It takes 6 days to make one of our TV shows, so that's quite time consuming. Last year we made the most shows ever. We made 9 shows, so I was over there for 54 days or something, trying to, not spill on my wardrobe and remember my lines and all that kind of thing. But the rest of my time is scouting TV shows, which is done accidentally through my guidebook research. While I'm over there, I've got plenty to get homesick for, but it's really not an option. I am very carefully there. Psychologically, emotionally, I'm a temporary European. It is a little bit of a challenge for a lot of us Americans to really be there. We tend to see it through a nice tinted window in the air-conditioned comfort of our car with our own music and a nice Coke and American friends to talk with. You got to break out of that. You got to really be there. And there's different ways to do it, and there's different ways not to do it. For an example is going to church. For a lot of people, going to church is a part of their weekly routine. Every week it's important to them they go to church. Go to Europe, can't go to church, not home. Baloney, you're home there. You can go to church on Sunday in Europe just like you do here. In fact, you're probably going to be in Rome with the greatest church in Christendom. Most tourists step in there like tourists with a camera bouncing on their belly. Where's the pieta? Click. I like to take a picture of the pieta too, but I'm aware that this is the greatest church in Christendom. And just last time I was there, we went to 5 o'clock Mass. And there's a way to really experience that church if you want to. So many ways to be there. You're going to be going through France in the harvest time, taking photographs of those beautiful grape pickers in the vineyards. Stow the camera, go out there, meet them and pick grapes with them.